U.S. Attorney Peter Smith spoke with members of the media after former Judge Michael Conahan received his 17.5-year sentence. Smith then turned it over to Assistant U.S. Attorney Bill Hauser to answer questions.
I'll make a brief statement, and then I've asked Assistant U.S. Attorney Bill Hauser to be available to respond to specific questions. The United States Attorney's Office feels that justice was done in the courtroom today with regard to Mr. Conahan, and that this sad chapter of the history of public corruption, the chapter involving Conahan and Chiavarella, has been closed as far as the federal court system is concerned, and we are very satisfied with the sentence imposed by Senior Judge Kosick today. The healing process continues, and the process of correcting the abuses that were so painfully and obviously shown in this case will continue, hopefully, and will be eventually successful. We are pleased with the outcome of the hearing today. I have with me Mr. Hauser and Gordon Zubrod, as well as two of the key investigators in the case, the agents from the Internal Revenue Service. As Bill so eloquently put it this morning, the government asked for a sentence that was serious because of the scope of the offenses and the relevant conduct, and we are satisfied with that sentence. Bill, do you want to make any comment with regard to that? Go ahead.
Judge Kosick, we feel has imposed a very appropriate sentence, and knowing Judge Kosick, he typically will give a person credit for accepting responsibility and pleading guilty. And if you look at his history, this is a sentence that's consistent with the kinds of sentences he gives based on guilty pleas and a person coming in not causing us to go to trial. So I'd say the sentence, you never know what the judge is going to do in sentencing, but this is something that is consistent and I think very fair. And it shows that Judge Kosick is being consistent and fair, even in this case, which is a very difficult case for him and for all of us.
Bill, what about the apology? What was your take on Mr. Conahan's apology?
Well, I'm glad at this point that he feels remorse for what he did. I think it helps all of us. It helps the community to feel better about this. It makes people think that, he recognizes the damage that he's caused. And so the apology, I think, is a good thing. Conahan accepted his responsibility, was remorseful, didn't put us through a trial, didn't put the community through the continuing heartache of this for a couple of years. So I think that as prosecutors, we wanted to recognize that he was entitled to some consideration for that, although the crime was very, very serious and needed to be dealt with harshly. As far as meeting with him, yes, as prosecutors, we typically do meet with people, regardless of whether they cooperate or not. I think that this kind of a situation can change a person, and I hope he is changed. He's definitely paying a very significant price for what he did in the past, and hopefully when he comes out of prison, he can start his life anew if he lives a long enough life that he gets out of prison.
What about the gray areas they mentioned? Is that specific to Conahan, or is that something that you saw in a lot of these cases where people thought what they were doing wasn't morally or legally wrong?
I think that relates back to what has been discussed in these cases, this culture of corruption. I think that's maybe what the judge was referring to, and the gray area relates to the fact that this has perhaps gone on for so long that maybe it doesn't seem wrong to some people, and now it's becoming very apparent how wrong it is, and people are paying a very significant price for it.
Can I add something to that? As Bill pointed out in the courtroom this morning during the government statement, a judge, especially a president judge of a court of common pleas, and of course who is also an attorney, is someone who the public would expect to be able to overcome the influence of the culture of corruption, in fact, be a leader in the fight to overcome that corruption if necessary, educate or re-educate many of the people that he has to deal with in the course of his duties. Conahan and Chiavarella miserably failed in that obligation as judges.
And I agree with that, and we just add that there are so many men and women in the courts in Pennsylvania who are people of extraordinarily high integrity, and so that gray area is not a gray area for them. And you know, just adding to what Peter says, you know, it's not an excuse in any way for what these guys did.